Men have become more and more well adapted, not only to the presence of the male dominance hierarchy, but to the ability to move up it.
Women pretend what they want is the beta, but what they actually want is the alpha.
And there's this weird line that's blurred in the manosphere space where you can't tell when somebody's doing a bit or when somebody is being genuine.
To be the alpha, to be attractive, the best thing you can do is to wear your Trump support on your sleeve. Show that you are a real man. Show that you are not a beta.
But the idea that that's the beacon of masculinity is like just a social media facade.
Okay. This is the second of a two-part episode. Our first, on the trad wife aesthetic and women's wellness pipeline, is on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. This one is on the guys. And I have to tell you, it took a lot for me to write this episode. The problems with men who've been sucked into these pipelines online are so vast and endless, it's almost impossible to tell the story in full with adequate levels of pity, empathy, and outrage at just how extreme all of this has become. Still, if you've spent any time online in the past decade, you've seen the momentum growing in the Manosphere, telling men and vulnerable little boys that they too can have it all, and their idea of it all means silent, baby-making wife mommies and making more money than God by being more efficient than computers. It's a fool's errand and total farce, but if you have the time, and in many cases money, to become isolated and undesirable to everyone around you, you're the perfect mark in this ongoing con. I'm Akilah Hughes, and this week, I'm looking at the dangerous online pipeline directed at men who were simply looking for health advice or gaming clips, and how the smallest amount of curiosity can lead to frankly deadly results, and asking, how is this better?
You know, what you see on your social media timelines, that's ingrained in boys, very early in life, is that like girls share stuff. Girls share their feelings.
Right.
If you want to be a girl, go ahead and do that. Right. And of course, being a girl is the worst thing in the world when you're a boy. But if you want to be a boy, if you want to be a man, eventually you keep those things inside. You don't talk about them, especially not in public spaces, and that gets hammered home very early.
This is Denny Carter, a writer at badfaithtimes.com and a fantasy football writer and podcaster for NBC Sports. He spent plenty of time in male-dominated spaces online and off, and I wanted to talk to him about how the alpha male messaging breaks through there.
I do think that the stuff you see on social media about how to optimize your life, how to make your life perfect, sort of reinforces those messages that you receive early in life, that you can achieve happiness if you just do this and that and this, but certainly not sharing, your feelings.
Right.
Not talking about important issues to you, to your family. That stuff has to stay repressed,
Absolutely. And the sort of idea that like being a woman is about community and girlfriends and all of that, and being a guy is about like a solo male journey that like only you alone would understand. Okay, so I'm curious if there is a particular aesthetic or vibe that makes this kind of content go from just like harmless life advice from someone you maybe kind of trust to something more politically coded.
Yeah, well, I mean, the political coding of optimization culture is definitely toward the right. If you're clicking on those videos and on those articles, it's going, the algorithm, wherever it is, YouTube, say, will feed you into the Andrew Tates, into the Joe Rogans, and you're down the rabbit hole, before you know it.
Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan are at opposite ends of the full spectrum of the very narrow ideas of masculinity presented through this ideology. Though Rogan is infinitely more popular and well-known than Tate, they're not so different, right? Both have backgrounds in martial arts, with Andrew Tate being a career kickboxer, CTE almost for certain, and Joe Rogan being a UFC commentator. But guys see Rogan as aspirational because he makes millions of dollars stonily talking to other rich men, routinely complaining in a hypnotizing, multi-hour, limited editing podcast format. It's a stand-in for intimacy and friendship from a guy you wish was your friend. If Joe Rogan is a thinker, then for a lot of these men, Andrew Tate is a doer. And despite the things he's done, namely sex trafficking and rape allegations, landing him in jail, and banned from several countries, he still is a role model for men who feel entitled to women in the way that he boasts about. Tate is allegedly wealthy from a few key streams of income, being a webcam pimp, tricking or convincing young women to engage in sex work on camera and give him the winnings. He claims he makes $6 $600,000 per month this way. And also from selling courses from his Hustler University, now renamed therealworld.net, on how to get in shape, get rich, and use that to get women to become webcam models for pay. I'm sure any day now, he'll add in courses about emotional maturity and having a personality beyond subjugating women, but I digress. For a guy searching for completely benign health, gaming, or dating information online, both of these men are just a few clicks away in the algorithm.
It starts off with young dudes who are looking up advice online. So say you're a young dude and you need a dating advice. A lot of young dudes at some point need dating advice. Inevitably, you get sucked down into this red pill pipeline and you're watching Andrew Tate and you're like, what the hell?
This is Adam Mockler, a 22-year-old political content creator who's been to more than 50 Trump rallies to debate Trump supporters to their face. He now runs a breaking news show that is the largest left-leaning Gen Z show on YouTube. And I wanted to talk to him because he's the demographic that the alt-right pipelines are directly trying to trap.
If you want to work out all the time and get into a good routine, I'll eventually see like RFK Jr. in my feed. So it's a pipeline. They bring you down it and hit you with a bunch of volume. It's kind of really potent across generations and genders. There's a new study that mothers, a lot of like new mothers get caught up in this health pipeline that therefore brings them into this anti-vax pipeline.
Yeah.
It's not like super, super common, but it's getting increasingly common in the digital age for new mothers or young women to also get sucked up in a similar like pipeline. And it's just starts off with being interested in like yoga videos online. Then you're watching a video that's like, did you know that these supplements have these ingredients? It's like, oh, that's probably true. This is bad for you. And it's the same thing. It's the pipeline. Now it is extra potent for young men because I have friends who are watching gaming videos. And then a few weeks later, I see them liking Nick Fuentes videos because on Instagram, you can see when somebody likes something, their Instagram profile picture pops up when they like a reel.
That's right.
Yeah, so I see my friends liking reels and I can see the pipeline happening through Instagram. I'm like, wow, this person is liking some crazy reels when just a few years ago they were normal.
Yeah. And I think that like what's unfortunate for, I think, especially young people is that there's sometimes not an awareness that like the algorithm is trying to get you to stay. There is this like, I think, delusion that we have a real choice in what we're doing online and that we're like discovering things. And that makes us feel like, oh, well, I should keep going because I found this. And it's like, they want you to see that. Like anything you're seeing on Instagram, they want you to see it because enough people saw it and they know that you'll stay there.
It is hyper tailored to keep you on the app because the end goal of any app, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, is to keep you on their app for the longest amount of time. If you're owning Instagram, you don't want Instagram users to swipe over to TikTok and get bored. So as they scroll, you create a feedback loop where you give them more content that will keep them on the app over and over and over. And it's really potent. I feel like on TikTok, it's especially brutal. I'll like a reel about something completely unrelated to all the other reels. And when I scroll, the next reel is about that. Like if I went on and I liked a reel about the new Superman movie, I'd scroll down and the next reel would be about the Superman movie over and over and over.
Right. And so it's like they really figured out how to just keep us in place. And I think that it's hard for the left to compete with that because like I think a lot of the like facts and being reasonable, all of that is not necessarily like a sticky or loud or, you know, exceptional kind of content. Like it is just sort of like, oh, well, we already know that. I want the thing that's like, you know, black tar heroin. I want to see the thing that's like women should live in cages, you know? Next up, we'll get into the idea of real men, the routines they're being sold, and the cynical and small visions that they have for themselves and the world.
You don't eat soup in public. You don't cross your legs. And you don't drink from a straw. And one of the reasons you don't drink from a straw is because the way your lips purse. It's very effeminate.
Jesse Waters at Fox News really wants you to think he's a #manly man and that he is somehow a role model or gatekeeper for masculinity. And sure, his day job is riddled with so-called femininity between sitting all day, having someone brush his hair and do his makeup like a pretty princess, and how upset he gets when anyone disagrees with him. But men are looking for role models, and guys on the right, not unlike Waters, are eager to fill their pockets by filling that void. Just look at Ashton Hall, a man with loads of muscles, making the same video every day of waking up earlier than necessary to fill out an Excel sheet he deems important.
So looking at it, bro, we gotta go ahead and get in at least 10,000.
Dunk his face in water and have a disembodied woman clean up after him so he can do his workout routine and deem himself more valuable because of it. He's now getting major studio brand deals thanks to his over-the-top view of what being a man is. And that's conflicting for me because these same types of men say they want to go back to a sort of 1950s traditionalism, even when their grandparents weren't taping their mouths shut to sleep or drinking gallons of water every day. Here's Denny Carter again.
That looks like the most miserable life imaginable to me. Like that video, like waking up, dunking your face in water, like doing that whole beauty routine, rubbing bananas on your face.
Right.
I mean, first of all, at some point you got to stop. You're holding a banana peel, rubbing on your face, and you got to say, have I lost my mind?
Right.
What's going on with me inside to think that I need to be doing this nonsense, right? And I think, a guy like that is selling the idea of like drudgery as happiness, because all of that stuff in that video that went viral is drudgery. Exercising like to an extreme degree, right? Waking up in the middle of the night, wearing tape on your mouth and all this stuff. Like, what is the point, is my question. You want to have a happy life? This cannot be the path to your happy life.
I mean, that's made me think two things. I guess the first one is like, we live in a time where people are talking about this male loneliness crisis. It's like men are not okay. Most men don't have any friends and everyone is online. And so you see this guy whose entire routine is alone all day, but he's like happy, or like he's like projecting like success, I guess. Do you think that that's part of it? Is like, if I was just a guy who was alone all the time, it's like, okay, but I could be alone and doing this, and that's something.
That's a good point. I had not thought of it that way. But yeah, I guess that would appeal to a man who sits at home all day and scrolls social media feeds and maybe, bets on sports and watches sports and eats and drinks and goes to bed and does it all the next day, right? That's a lonely life, and a lonely existence. Guys who are in that situation, and there are a lot of them, especially young guys, are really looking to anyone for guidance on how to be better and how to have a better, happier life. And if there's a guy on your timeline who's saying, do these things, wake up at 3 a.m. and exercise and dunk your face in water and all this stuff, they might try it. They might follow it because, hey, at least someone's giving me some direction, right? These guys, young guys especially, are directionless. If I could just suggest, if there are young guys listening right now, the best thing you can do is get out there and like find some folks to hang around and to spend time with consistently. Like, as a human being, you were not designed to be isolated all day, every day. And that makes you sad.
The other thought I had in all of this is like, just going back to the, like, you're rubbing banana peels on your face, you're dunking your face in water. We have this interesting juxtaposition right now where I think a lot of men who would subscribe to someone like Ashton Hall would say something to the effect of, we got to go back to the 1950s, real men used to do this, that, and the other. And now we're all like soy boys. We're not tough, whatever. But nobody's grandpa was rubbing bananas on their face.
Right.
So how did they square that, do you think? Like, is it just capitalism? Is it just like, well, it's something to buy?
That's a great, amazing question, because I've always thought, well, you want to go back to the 50s, which is all, I think the 50s is like a shorter way of saying like a time of extremes, cultural and societal repression. But, and you're right though, look, if you're a guy, if you're a man's man in 1955, you know what you're not doing? You're not drinking any water.
Never.
You're drinking bourbon and you're drinking whole milk, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. It smells crazy in your house.
You make up your mind. You want to be a tough guy. No more water for you. No more 5-gallon jugs.
Right, and never from a bottle.
No.
Go get a hose.
But yeah, I mean, there are heavier parts of this conversation in that the desire to go back to a time of repression that's really dark, right? I mean, you shouldn't be wanting that. You shouldn't be desiring that, except for the promise. And these are all promises. These are all being sold to you, right? As a young man, the promise that you could have what your father had and what your grandfather had. And honestly, guys, it wasn't all that great. You're right. It is like a mix of like hyper optimized, futuristic, capitalistic excess combined with the promise of yesteryear, where, we can return you to your grandfather's throne. Like, your grandfather wasn't on a throne. He was working a 9 to 5 and coming home and drinking bourbon and going to sleep.
Exactly. If he could have slept in, he would have chosen that.
He would, yeah.
Next up, we're asking, 3 a.m. wake-up calls and expensive sparkling water face baths, to what end? Beyond the absolute maze of hypocrisies in ideology and the obvious grift if the end goal is for all of these things to lead to success in having women, why does it seem like only men could be into this, even though both men and women can see the appeal of trad wives? Like, who is this for? Do you think that this is supposed to be rage bait? Like, do you think that he is aware of it being that? Like, or it's just extreme in a very specific direction so that people will interact with it?
I don't think it's supposed to be rage bait, but that's only because I've read a couple interviews with him, like after that initial one went viral, and I got the sense just from reading those interviews that he was in earnest. I definitely think it's supposed to be sensationalized. It's engagement bait, for sure.
That's EJ Dickson. You'll remember her from the last episode where we talked about trad wives. She's also pretty well versed in this alpha male pipeline.
But, I mean, waking up at 3 a.m. and sticking your face in $8 carbonated spring water with ice in it, like, that's not something that people do, obviously.
Right.
And it's something that's going to get a lot of engagement. I get the sense that he thinks that is genuinely how the ideal man should live, and that he feels that his audience shares that sentiment.
I'm just curious because I've watched far too many of them at this point. In research for this, I'm not a fan. No offense to him, it's just I'm not the target demo. But like, do you see any irony in how these sort of male optimization, alpha male type videos seem to miss the mark on what women are looking for in men?
Oh, I think about it all the time. I think it's so funny. and you'll see it all the time. Like, you'll see these tweets or these like posts go viral where women are like, no, we don't want this. Like, we want that. And there'll be a picture of like Seth Rogen or, somebody else.
Yeah.
And all of these men in the replies will just be like, she is lying. Like, they cannot possibly wrap their minds around the prospect that they are being sold a fallacy of, what the ideal man is supposed to look like, that they just resort to bitches be lying.
Yeah.
I definitely notice the irony. And I think it's very funny that men don't even try to understand it. They just automatically resort to, well, women are lying about this. Like, no, you actually do want this. Even if it would take the pressure off them even slightly, they just assume that women are lying.
It's like a level of self-loathing almost, where it's like, no, I'm not good enough and you're lying to me when you say that I actually could just show up with the body that I have. But it's like short-sighted in that like most women are not with guys who look like Ashton Hall, who like just have like the most giant muscular backs for like no reason. Like, it's just sort of their own fantasy of it. So what we're left with is a bunch of fake hacks for how to optimize your lonely, manly man life devoid of female input and companionship, being shoved down the throats of young, impressionable men who maybe just wanted to start a gym routine. Here's Adam again.
I think it's really important that we push back on right-wing domination in these spaces, because I work out, I know friends that work out or go fishing or do all of these things, and they are absolutely not right-wingers. So you have to push back on this stuff, and we have to be in these spaces. Sometimes I'll play clips of Theo Vaughn on my show or Joe Rogan on my show, and my audience has this very reactionary response where they say, don't even platform Joe Rogan. Why are you even platforming this person? And I'm always like, guys, listen, I know we disagree with Joe Rogan. I know he said some things in the past, but he has a massive audience of people who are just apolitical. The idea that I can't show a clip of him talking about politics, and by the way, the clip was him disagreeing with Trump and saying that Trump is going too far. I'm like, you guys can't be so reactionary where I can't even have these conversations. I can't show clips of Theo Vaughn. Someone called Theo Vaughn like a fascist. And I'm like, okay, listen, Theo Vaughn is probably a little bit not smart on politics, but I don't think he's a fascist. I think he's just not smart.
Yeah, he's like uneducated.
He's uneducated. And also he's pretty empathetic at some points. I've seen him talk about certain issues like Gaza, and he seems empathetic. I just think we sometimes push people out of these coalitions in a way that we shouldn't when it comes to maybe fitness or comedy. And I'm not trying to place all of the onus on Democrats. I would never do that, of course, but I think it's worth pointing out.
How does the left actually compete in that way? Because I think you're right. There is a purity test culture, especially the further left you go. And I consider myself pretty left, but it's like, I think that that's a major downfall of any sort of progressive movement is being like, well, they don't agree on this, so they're out. And it's like, okay, but we actually need them. Like, this is about numbers, guys. You only win with numbers. You can't lose your way into the future you want.
And even if we don't agree completely, conversation is important. Part of the reason why Joe Rogan was able to sway his audience so right is because the lack of left-leaning voices. Now, that could have been Joe's casting crew only picking right-wing voices. I don't know the full setup there, but I can say with certainty that if Pete Buttigieg was on there with the same frequency that Elon Musk was on there, that Pete Buttigieg would be winning over a lot of voters. He's good at what he does. He goes on to Fox News and he's great at what he does. I think it's important that we get in these spaces. We act like normal human beings. We don't shout people down or like finger wag. Sometimes the finger waggy gets a little bit too far. And there are cases where we should finger wag. Like when people are defending racism or doing insane stuff, like there should be a way where we can punch back in an edgy way, but we're punching up and in defense of trans people, in defense of minorities, rather than being obnoxious in defense of people. And I hate to say that, but like I feel like some people on the left at times can be purity testy or obnoxious when it's like, yo, we have the right position. If you really want freedom, let trans people be free to live their lives and, you know, just explain it like that.
One major change in the alpha male space online has been the complete erasure of women altogether. The 2010s misogyny of the internet was filled with men blaming women for withholding the sex they were rightly owed. Ew. But look today, and something even more sinister and addictive is being pushed in these groups. The idea that every shortcoming is something you've done wrong by being too poor or out of shape or bald or whatever. You know, you need to be looks maxing, as the boys are calling it. And that if you spend more and more money to obtain these superficial things, you won't find partnership on the other end. But you will find ways to manipulate the kinds of women you're attracted to, namely for these same shallow traits, into being subservient to you. Look, I'm not saying one is better than the other, and if you ask me, both ideologies can be floated out to sea and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. But it's worth noting, in a time when AI girlfriends are increasing in popularity, isolation is on the rise, and inequality-based contempt seems to be the baseline of communication online. I could go on and on forever about the sad state of manhood in 2025, and how remarkable men who somehow dodge this shit are, considering it's everywhere. But for now, let me just say, none of this is better. I hate to be on a soapbox, but the idea that men or women are thriving under the boot of patriarchy that seems willing and able to generate more and more rules for the correct performance of gender is impossible. There's probably never been a utopic era on Earth where men and women had perfect relationships. But we're certainly in the dark ages for human connection, and the internet has swindled a lot of men out of happiness and community by putting insane pressure on them to be exactly one way, as if Andrew Tate's criminal ass has figured anything out in any real way. Look, we're all just searching for answers, man, and good ones are harder than ever to come by. But I kinda think being a good person and touching grass is a superior method for figuring out who you are and building a life worth living.